Hello, BookTube. I got some mail today, including a box, but the first item, was neither envelope nor box, but contains more jewels than all the others put together. Look at the size of this thing. This is the Spring University of Chicago Press Catalog. Look at the size of it. It's huge. It's huge, and it has a million. I don't know if I've made it clear about the University of Chicago, but they are an umbrella under which shelter many little imprints, and there are hundreds of books in here. It's going to take me a blissful hour to go through these and make a list, and then find somebody, a very long-suffering, very patient somebody at the University of Chicago to take all of my requests. I wish that there were an automated way for me to do that. Some publishers, it is possible to do that, and they link your request with your mailing address, and it's all done that way. And the person who deals with the tedium are the interns in the mailroom, but not a publicist who's going to have to go through a list that might be long. When I get a big catalog like this from the University of Chicago, I always do the same thing. I make a complete list, and then I whittle. I make a list of the stuff I absolutely cannot do without, because I don't want to be sending somebody, 4 dozen book requests. But I'm not going to drag you through it. But it looked to me on first glance like there's a lot of great stuff in there. So now we'll move on to the books. Just a few packages. Let's see what this first one is. Oh, the first one is two things. What have we got here? Oh boy. Okay, great. These are Norton Critical Editions. I've shown you one of these things before. This is the Norton Critical Editions. We've seen a lot of them on this channel. They are a canonical work of some kind or other at the front, and then the back is all supporting works, contemporary reviews, any historical antecedents for the work involved, and then a huge smattering of reviews and essays and reactions and literary criticism about the work and the author, extending from when the author wrote to the present day. They're invaluable. They're made for students, but I think they're invaluable. I just love them. So what have we got this time? Okay, all right. First one is Karla Kaplan's edition of Quicksand by Nella Larsen, the famous author of Passing. I don't know Quicksand. Not well enough. I think I read it once in a collection, but let's see here. Nella Larsen's stunning 1928 novel, accompanied by Karla Kaplan's full and far-reaching introduction and explanatory annotations, and 27 carefully chosen reviews of one of Harlem Renaissance's most sensational literary debuts, as well as contemporary biological and cultural contexts. Fantastic. Okay, well, so you see what I mean. This is not just Nella Larsen's Quicksand. This is also the definitive one-stop shop book for Nella Larsen's Quicksand, because you will not only get the book with, let me see if I can show you here, with careful annotations. You get careful annotations at the bottom of every page of the text itself, but then you get everything you need to put it in its context. Literarily speaking, in detail, with nuance, not just the Wikipedia entry. And the next one is Milton Cohen's edition of the selected works of E. Cummings. It'll be the same thing. It'll be let's see here, the first ever annotated and cross-genre collection of Cummings' work intended for student readers. 166 poems spanning the range of his career. Selections from his prose, dramatic writing, and correspondence. 12 paintings and sketches, and 3 facsimile drafts. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Listen to that list of all that's in here. This is, again, a one-stop shop for you to really get to know E. Cummings and the critical tradition that has grown up around him. Amazing. Okay, great. That's fantastic. Very happy to have these. You're going to know, if you've been watching this channel for a long time, you're going to know that neither one of these is in Steve's squeal zone. It's not like getting Beowulf and Chaucer, but all the more important for that, right? Because it's in the 2020, it will be a nudge for me to read both these things anew, with lots more energy. And I typically with Norton Criticals, I will open them, whether it's Moby Dick or Henry James or whatever, I will open them thinking, okay, well, I'm going to read a bit or two from the book, from the work, and then read a bit or two of the critical stuff in the back. And almost always, I end up reading the whole work and reading everything in the critical stuff. So I end up pouring through these things. And these two are, in these two cases, it's not going to feel like a horrible self-indulgence because I don't know the works well enough. So, all right, great. We're off to a fine start. Let's see what this next one is. This is from Harvard University Press. Oh God, it's a finished copy. Is it getting to me late? No, January 7th, same as every other book in the world. This is by Wan Du. What a cover. Boy, oh boy. This is the Shenzhen Experiment, the story of China's instant city. Look at that. Okay, what have we got here? Shenzhen is ground zero for the economic transformation China has seen in recent decades. In 1979, driven by China's widespread poverty, Deng Xiaoping supported a bold proposal to experiment with economic policies in a rural borderland next to Hong Kong. The site was designated as the city of Shenzhen and soon after became China's first special economic zone. 4 decades later, Shenzhen is a megacity of 20 million, an internationally recognized digital technology hub and the world's most successful economic zone. Some see it as a modern miracle city that seemingly rose from nothing, attributing its success solely to centralized planning and Shenzhen's proximity to Hong Kong. The Chinese government has built hundreds of new towns using the Shenzhen model, yet none has come close to replicating the city's level of economic success. But is it true that Shenzhen has no meaningful history? That the city was planned as a tabula rasa? That the region's rural past had had no significant impact on the urban present? Wow. Okay, so this is going to be urban studies with a gusto. Oh, fantastic. Oh, man. All right. Okay, and this is early January. Fantastic. Okay, China's city from scratch. All right, now we'll move on. We're getting to the cardboard. Steve is pleased so far. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, my. Oh, right. Steve continues to be pleased, and for a very specific reason. Because this wasn't true. This has not been true for most of my time as a professional book critic. This next book is called Deal with the Devil. It's by Kit Rocha, and it's part of the Mercenary Librarians series. And it's from Tor, the foremost publisher of English language science fiction and fantasy in the world. And for a long time, I have not been on any of their lists. I've had to look with envy at Tor books in bookstores. Fantastic. Okay, so this comes out in May, in mid-May. What have we got here? The year is 2086. 2086. We're now almost 2020. So 2086 will be the third presidential administration of Baron Trump. Dystopian, indeed. America is a fractured shell of what it once was. Well, one would assume, yes. And the world is a dangerous place where genetically enhanced super soldiers run amok at the behest of a mega corporation. In short, librarians are the only hope for survival. Wow. Even today, the only hope for survival are librarians and nurses. So you're not far off the mark. We're so excited to be sharing this early copy of best-selling author Kit Rocha's Deal with the Devil. It is a high-octane, high-stakes science fiction romance, and it will be your next bookish obsession. Giant killer sharks. The author, the author is a duo made up of Bree Bridges and Donna Herron, and they are no strangers to adoring readers. Their independently published novels have catapulted them into multiple bestseller lists and garnered them an enormous amount of critical acclaim and reader love. Wow. So they're yet another success story of starting out as an indie and then branching off, then building your audience in what for want of a better term we'll call the bush leagues until you get to Tor and can reach lots more people. Boy, that happens a lot now. That really does. If there was ever an argument, an effective argument against indie publishing yourself on Amazon or something like that, it's gone. It's just gone. It used to be once upon a time, until comparatively recently, until the beginning of the 21st century, it used to be that if you did take that step, it would be a mark against you. It'd be something you'd have to be ashamed of. You read stories in the New Yorker and Harper's about indie authors from the late 20th century who went to extravagant lengths to buy every copy of their books so they could destroy them. Now it ends up in sell sheets. The authors are lauded for their whip-smart takes on consent, found family, intersectional feminism, resistance, and sex positivity. Okay, that's a list of 6 things. I understand 3 of them. So I wonder now, suddenly, if I am intended to read this book. The 2 authors, if I could magically transport them to my living room tomorrow at noon, would they look at me? I mean, before we'd said anything, before any words had been said at all, before they knew anything about me, would they look at me and said, "Your kind isn't welcome here"? Because if they would, I'd like to know that. I don't want to get 30 pages into a book when I'm committed and then realize, oh, wait a minute, these authors hate me. Anyway, resistance. Is that just floating free now? We're not going to say what we resist? I'm dedicated to resistance. What does that mean? We're going to say what we resist? No. It's just, my identity now, I identify as a malcontent. Okay. And all of those things that half of which Steve did not understand, are all wrapped up in their signature sexy, compelling romances. Okay, but what about the book? I'm sorry if that's horribly paleo of me, but what about the book? Okay, imagine the Avengers by way of Orphan Black, with a healthy dose of palpable sexual tension, and you begin to approach the earth-shatteringly good premise of the Mercenary Librarians series debut. Oh, this is the beginning of the series. And its premise is earth-shatteringly good. Nina and her found sisters, all of them mobbed up with special skills and dark past. That's not what mobbed up means. But that's okay. And found sisters, I assume, means friends. Sisters who aren't blood related to you. I assume found sisters mean friends. Or maybe the 21st century, maybe zillennials who grew up with their phones don't even know what that word means. Maybe they don't call anybody friends. You're just found family or enemies. These people, anyway, these found sisters, gather knowledge and supplies for their community. They're a new breed of librarian. When a group of renegade mercenaries, headed by the vigilante Captain Garrett Knox, offers them a cut of a big score, they know it could be a trap, but they have no choice but to take that risk. Along the way, Nina and Knox find that a perilous chemistry exists between them, and that could be deadly to everyone they love. Deal with the Devil is the perfect genre-smashing mashup of romance, science fiction, action, and dystopia that you never knew you needed. And then there are the mercenary librarians to top it all off, ready to save the day. Okay, it doesn't sound to me like Nina and her found sisters care at all about books, or wanting to get anyone else to read. I guess I won't look at a gift horse in the mouth. Instead, I will wait until the spring and read this, see what it's like. And I promise, Scout's honor, I promise that I will not go into this with my hackles up. By May, I will have long forgotten that I even read that pub sheet. So I will go into it just thinking, okay, this is a dystopian fantasy novel. So let's see what it is. And if I get to page 30 or 40, or maybe I'm giving the authors too much credit and it'll be page 2, and characters just routinely refer to, well, you know, there are barbarians coming. Oh, really? Are they men? Didn't I say they were barbarians? If cracks like that start to happen, if bigotry starts to appear, well, then I'll already know. But I'll have to wait to stub my toe over it, because this might be really good. It sounds like the authors have a long history of pleasing readers. And that's invaluable. And that's a kind of thing that indie publishing can give you that used to be that the mainstream publishing, the normal mainstream publishing venues would do that by trying you out. But now every new author has to be the huge hit deal. They all have to look like movie stars, and they all have to option their books in 6 figures. And that doesn't leave any room for you to earn your spurs or build an audience. So maybe indie is the new way to do that. Certainly a way to be direct with your readers, right? I mean, Wattpad and places like that, you're directly interacting with your readers. Your readers are telling you exactly what they want to see from you. All right, so I've been wrestling off stage with this next book. Let's see what we have here. This is our final one. This is the box. Oh, okay. All right, we saw the advanced copy of this, and hereby hangs a tale. Hereby hangs a tale. And if I can't bore you with that tale, who can I bore it with? This, I haven't read it. I will read it in the new year. I think it will blow me away. The first one did. This is volume 2 of The American People by Larry Kramer, the great iconoclastic Larry Kramer. This volume 2 is called The Brutality of Fact. I don't think it should have that cover, but that is our author on the cover. And this is volume 2 in a 2-volume thing of his called The American People. And I reviewed the first volume was enormous, and it was amorphous, and it was funny and vicious and weird. And I reviewed it for the Washington Post, and Sam Sachs reviewed it for the Wall Street Journal, and Dwight Garner reviewed it for the New York Times. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of holy trinity of book reviewing in American newspapers. Okay, not just the newspapers, but the 3 people involved. Dwight and I have read everything in the world, and Sam is a better reader than anyone alive. So we're a good trio to have, even if I have moved on to the Christian Science Monitor one way or another. Once upon, we were 3 of the only mainstream professional critics to even attempt to get through that first volume of The American People. And the original, it looked to me, I was probably wrong, but it looked to me like the original, in original mock-ups, it looked to me like this hardcover of The American People was going to have blurbs from all 3 of us on the back. There's no way to put a description of this book on the back of the book. There's no way to do it. It's a little bit on the abstruse side. And you're going to need all the recommendations you can get. And I think an original idea was that the combined readership of the Times, the Journal, and the Post is as good a welcome for a strange book as you can possibly give to a new audience. I think that once upon a time, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think that once upon a time in the early planning stages of this hardcover, the Dust Jacket was going to be one of those very rare items that featured all 3 of us at the same time. And that is not true. They in the end, they went with Dwight Garner because, you know, that's the New York Times. And then the other 2 names that they went with were Andrew Hollowan, writing about Volume 1 for The Advocate. Andrew Hollowan is, of course, the author of Dancer from the Dance. He's one of our most eminent gay novelists. And the other is Lawrence Mass, who is he wrote for the Huffington Post, and he is a major Larry Kramer level gay activist and gay advocate. So they skewed this more towards what they perceive as its target audience. I don't think young gay people today have any idea who Larry Kramer is. I don't think this is a good decision, in other words. And I'm not just being self-serving when I say that. A little bit, but not completely. I don't think this is a good decision. I think if you had shown on the dust jacket of this book that the Times, the Journal, and the Post all loved it, I think you'd be increasing the chances that a casual reader picking this thing up off the table at a Barnes & Noble, flipping it over, and encountering those 3 venues would be likely to buy the book. I think you increase your chances if that's true, as opposed to what is now. And salt for the wound here is that the sell sheet starts with me and Sam and Dwight. it's kind of salt for the wound. I once upon a time thought that would be the back of this book, but I don't know how. I don't think that the sell sheet even tries to describe this. No, it does not. It does not. And I don't know that the book will either. Let's see. In The Brutality of Fact, the standalone 2nd volume of The American People, Larry Kramer completes his radical reimagining of our country's history. In settings ranging from the brothels of 1950s Washington, D.C. to the uprisings of the 1980s and beyond, Kramer offers an elaborate phantasmagoria of conspirators in the halls of power and the ordinary individuals who suffered the consequences of their outrageous misdeeds. That doesn't really do the book justice, but let me tell you what the Holy Trinity said, just in case you're curious. I do recommend this book. You might want to read the first volume, but even if you don't, I don't doubt that the truth that this is a standalone book. I don't doubt that at all. So let's see the heavily parsed reviews here. Dwight Garner in the Times wrote that this book is a grand diva of a book. This is volume 1, a wheezing jukebox of filthy jokes, political hit jobs, killing gossip, love songs, and fluky mutterings. It is Mr. Kramer's magnum opus. And Sam Sachs in the Wall Street Journal wrote that it is a work of fiction as excessive, outrageous, confrontational, and crazed as the author's activism. It gets under the skin, and its sharpest passages are impossible to forget. And I wrote that the book is immense, sprawling, subversive, slightly insane, and brilliant. This is a writer all but synonymous with an epidemic, and the book is a novel in which all America is raucously outed. I don't know. I think that might have been a good thing to put on the back of the book, but who knows what the paperback will be like? We'll all be older and grayer by then. But this comes out in January, I'm sure. January 7th, and it's a major work. I mean, I might sound a little ambivalent on it because it's tough, but it's also funny. The second book, I don't know yet, but the first book was tough. It was involved. It was manic. You definitely felt that you were dwelling, that you were sort of groping around inside the author's manias. But it was also beautifully eloquent, really well observed, funny, sharp, mean. And I'm sure that this will be the same thing. It had better be with a cover like that. So there we go. Wow. Okay. The American People, The Brutality of Fact. Maybe the first volume, maybe volume 1 will come out in trade paperback with the Holy Trinity blurbs on the cover. Wouldn't that be nice? I hope I get it if true. I hope it's not out already and no one's told me. I hope I get it, because the number of books that have me and Sam on the cover at the same time, both named, is very rare, and it almost never happens anymore because his remit is entirely fiction, almost, and my remit is almost entirely nonfiction. So it's rare. But there's a case. I kick myself that I haven't actually gone out to check. Charles Finch, who's a Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket author that Sam and I both love. He went out of his way. He usually reviews fiction for the Wall Street Journal, but he reviewed Charles Finch's new book, his latest book, and so did I. And I still don't know. I have still never seen a trade paperback of that book, so I don't know if our names are on it. I would love to own a copy if our names are on it. But anyway, there's your mail for today. Very interesting, contentious mail haul. So we have The American People by Larry Kramer, Volume 2. The Brutality of Fact. We have Deal with the Devil, the first volume in the Mercenary Librarian series. We have the Shenzhen Experiment, about China's instant city and why other experiments like it have not quite taken off. Is it proximity to Hong Kong? Is it that? Or, well, this author will have plenty of ideas on the subject, I'm sure. Then 2 Norton critical editions. We have Quicksand by Nella Larsen and selected writings by E. Cummings. That's great. And the gigantic new spring catalog collection for the University of Chicago Press, which is going to take Steve quite some time to go through. Happy time. Delightful time. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.